what we're going to cover on today's session is really the number one reason that clients leave and what we can do to address it, right? I think if we're clear on that, we can really put some things in place to retain clients and reduce churn. I'm going to unpack the client retention model that's worked really well for me and the other agencies I work with as part of the seven-figure agency. We're going to talk about how to craft a world-class onboarding experience. What we found is what happens in the first hour, what happens in the first 45 days will dictate whether that client's with us a month down the road or even a year down the road. And then we're going to talk about your reporting and communication rhythm. It's really important that you report the right metrics, the things the clients actually care about, and that you've got a structure to how you're communicating with the clients and how you're keeping those clients informed with what you're bringing to the table and what you're doing. We're going to talk about how to track retention rates. I'm a really big believer that what you measure improves, and if you don't track it, you have no idea what's going on. So we're going to talk about specifically how do we track our retention rates and put mechanisms in place to keep a really close tab on that. I'll give you guys some KPIs to shoot for, because oftentimes in the agency world, we don't know. Like any retention level is good, ideally 100%, right? But what's bad? What's the barometer to say whether you're doing well or whether there's a serious issue with your service model or your delivery model that needs to be addressed? So that's the plan. A couple people saying they don't see me large. You guys might want to just in your settings go pin, click on my video here and pin me. That way I'm big enough, because I'm going to be presenting from the back here.
Yeah, you can click on the three dots next to Josh's picture, and then if you click on it and you click pin, and then you got him like full screen.
You should be able to see me. Yeah. So here's the issue. Here's the problem as I see it in our agencies, in our digital marketing agencies specifically. Clients cancel, right? No matter how good you are, no matter how good your service is, no matter how great your strategies work, eventually clients are going to inevitably call in, send in a message and say, hey, I'm sorry, but I need to cancel, or I need to pause, or I need to go in a different direction. Give me a 1 if this has happened to you at some point in your agency journey, because it happens to all of us. Dan gave me a 1. And depending upon why that client canceled, it can really destroy your confidence and your energy to sell. Because if they cancel due to you failing to deliver what you sold or failing to create a good experience, internally that messes with your head, right? You start to be like, well, maybe we're not really that good, or maybe there's something broken in the business. And when you've got that running in the back of your head, it will kill your confidence and your energy to go out and continue to sell. The other really big issue as it pertains to client churn is if we can't retain, then we can't move forward, right? We'll be like this guy or the little hamster on the wheel running, and you can be running super fast, but if you're landing a client, losing a client, landing 2 clients, losing 2 clients, landing 3 clients, losing a client, you're never actually getting forward, right? You're doing a lot of energy without any positive momentum. The other thing, Jeremy was asking what type of agency is my preference. My preference would be, you're in a specific vertical, you're positioned as the go-to expert, and you can really systematize your offering. You can scale up relatively quickly. The issue with that kind of model is the good news spreads fast, but the bad word spreads fast too, right? If you're losing clients, it won't be that long before the industry starts to recognize, you know what? They just make big promises, but they don't deliver. I was with them for a couple of months and I canceled because whatever, right? Whatever the reason is. That reputation will deteriorate your ability to grow and scale the business. So bottom line, this is
name at this stage, Josh. You just change your company name. You invert a few words and you're good.
Just change the name and start a new brand when that happens.
That's right.
Nobody wants to have to jump through that hoop, right? So bottom line is if we can't dial in our retention strategies, we're not going to have the confidence to grow and scale the business. And so I'd love to hear from you guys. When you think about retention, just in the comments, or if somebody wants to unmute for a second, what are the biggest challenges you face when it comes to retention of clients? I know we've got some great questions teed up, but if a couple of you could just post in, what are some of those challenges you're facing, or what's the hardest part about retaining clients? Jeremy, what do you think typically people face when it comes to retention and client churn?
Well, yeah, this is a good point. Is everyone just muted and they can't unmute themselves? So you're gonna have to type in the chat if you have something. There's Dan who says something about appointments we booked. Maybe you want to answer those ones. So type in the chat if you have anything, and or if
so Dan says they can't sell the appointment. So we wind up doing all this work, whether it's cold outreach or whether it's doing websites and SEO, and they don't book them. They get results and they have a bad product, right? These are all big issues as it comes to retention. So really what we want to do, what we want to solve for on today's session to the greatest extent possible is make sure that clients come on board, they're happy, and they stick around long-term. Really, that's the end outcome that we're after. To do that, we want to kick things off in a really good foot. We're going to talk about some strategies to make sure that we onboard in a world-class way. We keep them engaged, we keep them on board. And when we do this right, we'll have a great retention of our client base, which will give us the ability to grow, give us the ability to scale. There was a report or a study done by Bain, and what they found was a 5% increase in retention can result to a 25% to 95% increase in profitability. And so we, as agencies, are very sales oriented, business development oriented. Like, we're all thinking about landing the next client, putting the cool client acquisition strategy in place, improving our sales process, hiring sales teams, right? We tend to spend 90% of our energy on sales and business development, but we spend very little of our energy on what are we doing to create a great experience? What are we doing to keep those clients happy? What are we doing to make sure we're delivering on our promises? And what this report tells us is if we can put a little bit more effort here, it's going to pay dividends in the profitability within our businesses. So I want to start with some fundamentals, and then we'll get into some very specific tactics. Number one, as it relates to some of the base fundamentals, as agencies, I think we want to focus on impact, right? Focus on impact. Make sure that the services that you're offering provide a tangible, measurable return on investment. I think, sometimes we get into the technical aspect of what we do, right? Like, you're just thinking about websites and SEO. We're thinking about link building. We're thinking about content strategy. We're thinking about, activity-based services that we can sell, when really we should be focused on a service that's going to generate more revenue, more profit for the clients that we serve. So, regardless of what you're selling, make sure that that's the emphasis, right? Because as agencies, if we can't make it rain, if we can't deliver results in terms of revenue growth, in terms of increased lead flow, we don't really have a foot to stand on. The other thing that I found really impacts retention is going a little bit wider with the service offering, having more hooks into the client. And I'm all for being a specialist, but sometimes if all you do is Facebook ads, let's just say, or all you do is set up websites, you're tethered to one particular channel. And sometimes they need more than that, right? Sometimes just the Facebook ads will generate leads, but they also need reputation management. They also need a great website that's built to convert. And what I found is agencies that can expand their service offering and go from maybe just doing one thing to doing 3 to 4 things in a program-based model will have a couple of positive outcomes. First of all, they'll actually be able to blend the results, get more consistent, tangible results for their clients. The other thing is they'll also have more hooks into the client, because they're not looking at you as just the lead company or just the Facebook company or just the SEO company. They're looking at you as their digital marketing provider that's really providing tangible, measurable results. And so where possible, if you can go a little bit wider with the service offering, we find that really, really helps. Number 3 is, I really believe this, and I found it to be true, is that the clients you choose to work with can make or break you, right? As agencies, we have the opportunity to select and decide, this is a good fit client, this is not a good fit client. And oftentimes when I deal with agencies, especially in the kind of the early phase in their business, they're trying to sell whoever they can get. And even if they're niche focused, whether it's the one-man operator or the bigger organization, they think it's all the same, but it absolutely is not. There are the kind of companies that have had a little success, that have a bigger budget, that are more prone to actually stick around long-term. And the best example of this is Plumbing and HVAC SEO is my agency that we've grown to about $4.5 million per year. When we started, we would deal with any plumbing company, right? We would get the one-man plumber that would, just kind of go out to the house and do the actual plumbing work themselves. And we found that we would get these clients, we would work really hard for them, we would generate good results, but they would end up canceling, and they would be the hardest to work with. But the clients that were bigger, the ones that were $1 million or more in revenue that we worked with, tend to be like less energy, more capable of converting the leads that we have into sales, more capable of monetizing our services, and stick around for the long term. And so when we shifted our focus from anybody to saying, look, our real client is the bigger, like the $1 million to $5 million a year company in our particular business, made a massive difference in our retention rates. So I mean, these are just some base fundamentals. The other thing, the last thing I'll say from a fundamentals perspective on retention is the expectations will also have a huge impact. Depending upon how you sell your service, if you're coming into the relationship saying, hey, let's just do a trial, let's give this 30 days and see what happens, you're putting yourself under the gun right out of the gates. Versus if you're positioned as, hey, look, this is going to be a long-term commitment, right? We're going to be building this, that, and the other. It's going to take some time to get this fully fleshed out. Set whatever the expectation is. And if you can get a 12-month commitment, obviously that makes a big difference, right? You're going to retain clients that come in thinking long-term longer than you're going to retain somebody that was just giving you 15 days to run a beta test and see what happens. So just fundamentals. If you could put fundamentals in the chat for me, just type fundamentals if this resonates, if this is clear, if there's a couple of things in here that you might be able to say, yeah, I need to go back and focus on that. Shebra's asking what kind of agency I have. I run a full service digital marketing agency working with plumbing and HVAC contractors. And so, we sell a $2,500 a month retainer, and we're going to come in, build their website, do their SEO, put reputation in place, drive paid search, and all of the tracking and everything in between. And we work with about 190 or so plumbing and HVAC companies throughout the country. And that's our model. So if that's helpful, that's kind of how we structure our business. So moving to why clients leave. This is an engagement part in this session. I want to know, what do you guys think the number one reason that clients leave is? Put it in the comments for me, because I know that a lot of us have different opinions. Like, why is it that these clients are leaving? If you just look at it. Jebra says communication, belief, or ROI. Marta says not enough communication. Jennifer says communication and results on ROI, results and expectations, buy-in and ROI. Not happy with the results. So a lot of it's probably because of results. David said because the grass is greener, right? You think about it, there's so many other agencies, from the guy down the street to the big companies like Scorpion and Reach Local. They're hearing from people every day. Is it because they look across the pond and think, man, the grass is green over there, I'm going to try this company, right? Research tells us the number one reason that clients leave is perceived indifference. And yes, sometimes it's going to have a part to do with the results. Sometimes it's going to have a part to do with the communication. But what we found is the number one reason clients cancel digital marketing agency retainers is perceived indifference. They feel like you don't care about them anymore as a client. They're just a number on a spreadsheet somewhere. And you don't really care about them, or your company is not really paying attention to their account. And the beautiful part about this being the number one reason that a client cancels is it's pretty easy to solve for perceived indifference, right? We can put processes in place to make sure we're touching the client, to make sure we're communicating with the client, to make sure that we're nurturing that relationship. So I really think it's a balance, right? Yes, the number one reason they leave is perceived indifference. But here's the reality, right? If you generate amazing results for your clients, right? You get the phone ringing for them, you generate lots of leads and sales, You're generating the result that you promised, but the service is terrible, right? You don't answer the phone. You don't answer their questions. You don't check in with them. Even if you're providing great results, they're going to cancel, right? We found that to be the case. Early in our business, we would go to work. We do great SEO, work for the clients. And they would call in and say, hey, you know what? We're going a different direction. And we're like, well, what's going on? Like we knocked out of the park for you guys. And they were coming back saying, well, I heard from this other company in BNI, and they're going to be meeting with me live and in person on a consistent basis. And they left. Now, to the same function here, if you provide amazing service, right? Let's say you've got a daily call with your client and you send them cookies in the mail every weekend, and you know their kids' names and you know their pets' names, and you send them flowers when something happens in the family, but the results aren't there. What's going to happen? They're going to cancel, right? So it really is a balance. You can't just do only results, right? And you can't just do great service. You have to balance, or you have to provide great results and make sure that your experience is on point and that you're creating a great relationship. So I want to dive into this model, right? And I want to go, as deep as we can on this. We got 10 minutes of core content, and then we're going to get to Q&As. But this model is our client retention maximization model. Let me know if you guys can see this. Just one in comments, at least if you can see the main text. If not, I may switch to share my screen here. All right. Landy says she can see it. All right, good enough. So there's 3 key elements to maximizing your client retention. Number 1 here is world-class onboarding, right? It all starts with how you kick off the relationship with the client. Really, what happens in that first week, what happens in that first 30 days will dictate whether they're with you 12 months down the road. So you want to engineer a world-class experience. Number 1 on this is we want to kick off with a bang and appreciation. So I'm shocked how many times an agency will get a $1,500 or $2,500 a month client, and they just use email, right? They'll send an email, here's your onboard form. Hey, here's what you can expect. And yes, we're in a digital world, but why not drop something physical in the mail? What we do is we drop a really nice welcome basket in the mail. You can get this through gourmetgiftbaskets.com or whatever gift basket service you want. $75 to $100. And they get something saying, hey, thanks for your business. Welcome aboard. That's a great way to create a good experience right out of the gates. And make sure that you've got good communication, right? Make a phone call out if you're the owner of the business and a salesperson sold it. Send a text message, send communication. Really welcome with a bang and appreciation. Make your data capture seamless and effortless, right? Usually, at least the way we operate, there's lots of things to get from the client, right? We need their usernames and their passwords. We need their USPs. We need images of their team. We need access to their domain, right? Give me a 1 if you wind up having to get a lot of stuff from the client. What we want to do is make that collection process as smooth as possible. And what we found is having a form, a multi-step form, is the first part of this. So immediately, hey, here's some stuff we're going to need from you. But the second part of it is don't rely on the form, right? I love automation, but you can go way too far with automation and delay the process. And so what we found is having a structured onboard call with the client. Hey, welcome aboard. Here's what we're going to be working on. Here's what we need from you. Oh, you don't know what your GoDaddy username is? Let's get on with GoDaddy now. I'm going to joint call with them, right? Solve those problems for them as quickly as possible and take it off their plate. So make that onboarding and collection seamless. Number 3 is we have to engineer quick wins, right? They're paying us a monthly retainer service for what we do. And our agency, as an example, we started as an SEO company, which meant we were going to build a website. We're going to write a bunch of content. We're going to claim directories and try and move them up in organic search. But what we found was that process, just getting the website live, would take like 4 to 6 weeks. And then getting those pages indexed and actually moving up in the search results could take like another 2 to 3 months. So it wasn't outside the question that they were like 3 to 6 months in before they really started to see much by way of actual leads and tangible results. that causes churn problems, right? You can create a great experience, but if they don't see something valuable right out of the gates, they're going to start thinking, man, I'm not going to pay that monthly fee anymore, right? No matter how well you set the expectations. So some quick wins that we put in place was we started launching a pay-per-click campaign within the first week. Not like a really aggressive campaign, but at least picking a couple of their services and getting some paid search out to specific landing pages. We also found doing database reactivation, like getting their past customer base, getting their past clients, and sending an email blast out or a text message blast out, making an offer, we could generate some quick wins. And so I'm not saying those are the end all be all in terms of quick wins, but really think about this. What are you doing that's generating some tangible result for the client in the first couple of weeks? If you can provide a great experience, send them the welcome basket, have a good onboarding call, and generate something, even if it's just one or two little hits of dopamine that are real results, you can really change the game in terms of how long they're going to stay. That initial onboarding will usually buy you at minimum the first 90 days, really, and then what happens after that is what's going to buy you the rest of the year. Give me a yes in the comments if that resonates, like if just kind of thinking about how do we create world-class onboarding can make a difference. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate the engagement. Fantastic. Okay. The next part is we have to have effective communication, right? So we kick them off in a great way, and we're going to work, right? Usually we're going to do our websites or SEO or whatever it is that we do. And oftentimes we want to use automatic reporting, right? Whether you're using agency analytics or NinjaCat or something else, there's all these great tools, Bright Local, that will send automatic email. Hey, here's your ranking report. Here's your analytics. All is good. What we found is, especially if they're paying you at least $1,000 per month for a retainer, you need to be communicating with them. There should be a more ritualized process by which we communicate. And so when it comes to effective communication, one of the main things I want you to think about is your reporting, right? Is your reporting. In our agency, we do SEO, we do pay-per-click, we do social media, we do all of that. And we used to drop tons of data on them. So they would get a report that showed them all of their keywords and where they ranked. They would get analytics that compared this year versus last year. And they would get all this data and they would be looking at us confused. They'd be like, what does that mean? I don't care. What you want to think about is, what does the client really care about? What they care about is, how much money did I spend, right? How many leads did I generate? And what's my ROI, right? They don't care about the technical mumbo jumbo. They care about those three key metrics. And so I'd really encourage you, have all that extra stuff for your team to manage. Have it there in case you need to have that conversation, but dial it back to show them, here's how much you spent with me this month. Here's how many leads that you got. And here's what your return on investment is, or at least the projected return on investment. When you can get your reporting to that level, you buy a lot of confidence with the client. Number two is we want a meeting rhythm. And what we found works best is more early, right? More very early in the relationship. And you can kind of scale that out, over time. At the beginning, we do a weekly call. Hey, here's what's going on. Here's what we're going to be working on. Here's what's next. Let's meet next week just to check in and kind of fill in any gaps. That's usually for the first month. After that, we say, hey, let's move to a monthly meeting. That monthly meeting is for us to review the reports with you, get feedback from you on what's working, and talk about what we're focused on next, right? Ideally, that's what you want to do. What we found is a lot of times clients get busy. They don't have time to take that call, right? They're just like, hey, if you're doing good work for me, I don't want to be on there. Have a fallback where you shoot a little Loom video of some sort. Hey, sorry, we couldn't meet this month. I know you're busy. I'm busy too. I just wanted to kind of show you what we've been doing, what we're seeing in the reports. 5 minutes or less. We found this made a huge difference with our retention as our account managers. Instead of just saying, hey, we emailed them about the meeting and they didn't say yes, they didn't show up. And then 6 months later, the client's like, hey, we canceled because you never did anything for us. We didn't hear back from you guys. A quick video, 5 minutes invested on a per client basis can make a big difference. And if they want to know more, they'll hop on the call. If they don't, they're like, hey, that looks good. I see the results. I understand what you guys are working on next. I'm good to go. And then from there, we want to seed the vision, right? Somebody said the grass is greener. That's the reason people leave. Reality is the next reason clients leave is because they feel like you've taken them as far as you can go with your service. right? You did your thing and that's the end of it, right? And there's always new things coming out. There's always new strategies that are rolling out. So you have to constantly be seeding the vision. Hey, here's what we did, but more importantly, here's where we're going next, right? Here's what we're going to be focused on with your website, or what we're going to be focusing on with your paid search, or kind of what we're going to do to help you hit that next goal. The moment that you or your team stops seeding the vision in terms of where things are going to be 90 days from now, a year from now, is when you're at risk of those clients leaving. So just be super conscious about not just looking back with the reporting, but also looking back and projecting into the future. That's what we want to do on a communication basis. Give me some ones if this resonates, right? If you can get to a monthly meeting with the client, if you can get to at least a monthly recap via video, the communication is going to be much better, right? There's going to be a much better chance of them sticking around long-term. Now, the third part is what I call client success management. And this really is where you shift from one-to-one client relationship management, or one-to-one thinking about how you retain clients, to, eventually, as we build our agencies, we're going to have 15, 20, 100 clients. And you as the owner can't manage that yourself, right? You're going to need to put team in place. You're going to need to know what those key metrics that you want to track are. So number one from client success management is we have to track retention, right? You need to know how many clients do we have, how many new ones do we sell, how many do we lose, what's our retention rate? And all too often, I talk with agencies, I say, hey, how's business going? And they're like, it's great. Awesome. What's your retention? Like, how are you guys retaining in the business? And there's like just this blank stare. Like, I don't know, because they don't track it, right? And if you don't track it, you can't improve it. So number one, even if you've only got a handful of clients, or if you got lots of clients, make sure that you are tracking this on a month-over-month, quarter-over-quarter, year-over-year basis. Number two is we want to put some KPIs in place, some key performance indicators that you're measuring against for your account managers, for your team. What percentage of the clients did they meet with? What percentage of those clients are happy? What percentage of the clients are getting good results, and which percentage are failing, right? There's some base KPIs we want to put in place. And as I see agencies grow and scale, one of the simplest things I've seen that has a really big impact on retention is putting a traffic light system in place. And so conceptually, let's say you've got 50 clients, right? You've got 50 clients and you've got them all on a spreadsheet. It can be really hard, even at 50 clients, to know which ones are doing good, which ones are struggling, which ones are going to stay, which ones are on the brink of cancellation. And so if you can think about a Trello board, I think I have a visual for this in the presentation. You would have green clients on one track. These are my green clients, and put them on a card where you can say, okay, these are the clients that are getting good results, that are on their monthly review calls, that are happy. We have no reason to expect that they're going to leave. These are our yellow clients. And for some reason, either they said something that made you feel like they're not happy, or as you look at the results and the ROI, there's something that's not quite there. Those are your yellow clients. And then you've got a column for red. And those are your clients that have said they're going to cancel, have requested a username and password, have just gotten really, really bad results. And so we want a traffic light system, with 3 columns. And on a weekly basis, you and your team would meet and look and rearrange the clients based on where they sit. So you have a bird's eye view, and you can place your focus where it needs it, right? Place your focus on those red clients. You probably, as the owner, need to get on the phone with them and figure out what's going on and kind of see what you can do to reverse course. And for your yellow clients, what can you do as a team? What can you change? What can you update to move as many of them to green as possible? Christian, thanks for the visual. Yeah, a traffic light system like this is a simple concept, but it can have a big difference, especially if you work it into your meeting rhythms. And so this is the client retention model. I find if you can get really good with your onboarding, your communication, and then your success management, it can have a huge impact on your results. I'm not going to go through all of this right now. This is probably a full day workshop, and we've got 20 minutes for core content. The good news is,
I believe in you, Josh.
The good news is Jeremy and Christian convinced me to give you guys a workbook. That way you've got some of this key information in terms of the key things that you're going to want to put in place. Yeah, this slide's impossible to read. We've got a document for you that you guys can take away. With that said, key performance indicators. Somebody was like, well, what are those key performance indicators? What should we be shooting for? what we found from a retention perspective, what you want to shoot for is at least 97% monthly or higher. 100% is impossible, right? No matter how good you are. Clients leave because they got bought. Well, one of our first clients, Jeremy, was asking me, who's your first client? Are they still with you?
Sad.
Unfortunately, no, the owner passed, right? So it could be sometimes they cancel because they something happened in the business, they got bought out. Could be you dropped the ball. It happens sometimes, right? It could be whatever you did just didn't work that time. But I find if you can get to 97% or higher monthly retention rate, you're doing pretty well. Really, ideally, you want it to be 98% to 99%. Like if you're at 99% retention month over month, you're doing really, really good work. Solid, and we actually sat here for a little bit in our agency at about 95%, which means about 5% of your clients are canceling any given month. That's, I think, pretty solid. You're losing more than you probably want, and there's room for improvement at that level. Where you've got a red flag is if you're less than 95% monthly retention. Right? If you're losing more than 5% any given month, something's not right. Could be an account manager, could be the promise that you're selling, you're not setting proper expectations, could be some breakdown in the business. And so this is something you really want to focus on at 95% or less, re-engineer the offer, re-engineer the offering. That's where you really want to go back to the drawing board on that. How to retention, there's a great formula for this. Alex just asked, how do you track? There's no way you could see this. And even if you could, it wouldn't be that useful. It's, kind of your customers that you had at the end of the period, the number of new customers that you acquired, and the number of customers that you had at the start of that particular period. And then there's a formula for it. We've got a great worksheet that we're giving you guys. If you go to sevenfigureagency.com/tracking, this is in the workbook as well. This just gives you a really easy mechanism to plug in how many clients you landed for the month, how many you lost that month, and know what your retention rate is. Give me one if that's helpful to kind of have a simple Google sheet that you can use. This is something we usually give just to our clients, but Christian and Jeremy convinced me if we're going to talk about retention, we probably need to actually solve for this a little bit. The other really important element, and I'm just trying to hit the key points here so we can get to the questions, is you can't do this on your own, right? As you grow, as you scale, if you expect to retain clients, you can't be the only person, communicating with the clients, doing the onboarding, doing the monthly reviews. What I found is you're going to cap at about 10 to 15 clients. As a full service agency, if you're the one selling and running the business and trying to be the client relationship coordinator, you're going to have to make a choice at about 10 to 15 clients. Do I pause here and just try and retain, or do I put somebody in place that can take over account management so I can continue to grow the business? So that's a decision you have to make. You're going to make sure you're priced accordingly in order to hire account managers as you grow. We found that the average account manager can handle between 25 and 30 accounts. That's assuming they're just the client liaison, right? They're talking to the customers, they're reviewing the reports, they're explaining what's going on, they're setting their follow-up meetings, they're shooting their monthly reviews. And so you want to plan for every 20 or so accounts to hire another account manager, because you're going to need to hire them, train them, get them on board, and get them ramped up. And so again, this could go much, much longer, but this workbook will give you the key things that you need. If you go to sevenfigureagency.com/retention workbook, we kind of broke down for you the onboarding, the monthly reporting, and then ultimately the client success management, which is how do you hire account managers? How do you train them up? How do you get them placed? How do you make sure you're hiring somebody good? How do you pay these types of people to really manage the retention in your business on your behalf? So we covered number one reason clients leave. Put it in the comments for me just to make sure you guys all got it. Number one reason clients leave. How to craft a great world-class onboarding experience, and drop the gifts, make sure you really orchestrate the onboarding process. What your reporting and communication flow should look like, right? We want to hit the things they actually need to see. How much do they spend? How many leads? What's their ROI? And make sure that we're pulsing with them monthly and or sending a video as a recap. We want to track our retention rates. We showed you how to do that. We talked a little bit about the KPIs, like the key things that you want to hit. And so, Christian, Jeremy, I want to open it up because I know there were a lot of great questions. Open it up for questions now.
Okay, that's brilliant. So, hey, lots of really good stuff. I love how actionable a lot of those stuffs are. if you guys can in the chat just mention one or two things that resonated very much with you and you're going to implement over the next week or two. I think I love the Loom video. If you can't just hop on a client for the weekly or the monthly results, this is gold. And the other thing I'd like you to do, guys, as well, is to drop a question. We have a series of questions that have been asked pre-webinar, and I'm going to select a few of them, but I prefer to favor the questions of the people who were live on the webinar and who watched it. So while you guys are writing the question, and Christian will collect them for me, I'm going to ask a few questions for you, Josh, if you're good with that.
100%.
All right, awesome. So let's get it. Let's get on with it. The first question from Ark is, what's the biggest red flag of a bad client? I love this one.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a couple things, red flags. One red flag is if they're coming to you talking about their previous providers. Oh, I tried this company and they were terrible and they just didn't do a good job. And while that's true in a lot of cases, potentially, somebody that's a negative Nancy, right, that's just unhappy is going to carry that negative energy from that previous company. And almost every time, no matter how good you are, you're going to wind up on the bad end of that conversation. So that's a red flag. Pay close attention to it. The second thing is if they're not going to follow your process, right? As agencies, we have to have process in place, right? We're going to do an onboard call. We're going to gather this stuff. This is what we're going to do. This is what the expectations are. And most clients, if they're good clients, they've hired you, they believe in you, and they're going to follow your process. The red flag is when they're like, I'm not going to meet with you. I'm just going to send you an email, right? Or they say, hey, I'm not going to do those monthly calls. I don't have time for that. I'm going to put Sally on those calls, and she's going to be the one to have those conversations. If that's the way your process works, fine. But if they're not willing to kind of mold to the way you operate, that's usually a red flag, and that it's probably not going to be a good long-term relationship.
Those are brilliant. Bad mouthing. I mean, every situation, not just with clients. And the other thing is skipping. We also have the same sort of thing, like clients who wants to skip the sales step, especially with lots of onboarding. They say, no, that's fine. I'm just paying the product. Well, you're sure in a month or two, they're going to be gone. So brilliant answer. All right. Another one from Oleg. Considering my agency is 100% remote and works is outside of the US, how can we build trust through online-only environment during the first few calls? Yeah, so our company now is all virtual as well, and we've got US-based and international. I think a couple things you want to do. Number one is try and get something physical into the mail. I think that builds a lot of trust. In the digital world, we're all sending emails. We're all having meetings online. It doesn't cost that much to send a welcome basket, to send a thank you note in the mail. That's going to build some trust. The other thing would be, where possible, make sure that your meetings are web-based, right? Where you've got your camera on, they've got your camera on. While you're not in person, you can build that connection. You can build that know, like, and trust. So try and engineer it so that you're going to be online, they're going to be online, and you can have a real one-to-one human conversation. Okay. Love it. I'm going through some of the questions. Some are really good. Nate is asking, how do you remain profitable with having an account manager spend an hour on the phone with the client each month? Isn't that a lot of resources when you include prep and post call time? It's good. I think the way you remain just the call most of the time, right? Yeah, there's a lot more to it. Yeah, I think you remain profitable by pricing accordingly, right? If your program's $100 a month and you're going to hire account managers to do monthly calls, and you realize every call that they do is going to be probably 3 hours, the prep, the call, the recap after the fact, you're not going to be profitable, right? So just make sure you engineer into your pricing the deliverables, the cost of the account management, and the overhead. I think that's the key thing. Oh, great answer. Quick question for you, Josh. Do you think people don't have enough margin in their pricing? Do you often just tell them hey, double your price, or increase your price? Yeah. I think a lot of times there isn't enough margin. A lot of times agencies, especially at the beginning, they just look at what other agencies have charged, and they have this preconceived notion, I could do this for $500 a month. And maybe one-to-one, as the owner clicking the buttons, doing the work goes well. Yeah, maybe there's some money there, but once you start to hire, once you start to take on overhead, there's not. I think your minimum gross margin you want to be shooting for in an agency is 50%.
right? If your gross margin isn't at least 50%, there's not going to be room for sales costs. There's not going to be room for overhead. There's not going to be room for profit at the end of the day. So look at whatever your cost to deliver it is, right? Whatever your cost is, if you're white label, if you're doing it in-house and you got your own team, and make sure there's at least a 50% gross margin.
50, yeah, that's pretty big, huh? You don't think so? Like 50%.
I mean, so when I say gross margin, that's your direct costs, right? That's your direct cost to deliver. You're still going to probably have like another 20% in overhead, right?
That's right.
So you want your net, like if you're running a service-based business, you want to be shooting for a 30% net, right? If you can't net 30%, then you're going to be doing a lot of work and not a lot of meat on the bone.
That's so true. All right. Other question from Yusuf. Do you keep the clients when they mention they want to end the collaboration, or do you just let them go instantly? Like, are you trying to do,
yeah, great question.
Them back?
Yeah, great question. I don't think you ever want to just get an email, hey, we're canceling, and call it a day. You want to have a thought through offboarding process. And ideally, you have a save call. Like you've got an orchestrated, hey, understand you want to change directions. That's okay. We just want to be on a quick conversation to recap like kind of what happened, right? And how we can improve for the future. And when you do that, kind of take them through a consultative sales process again, right? You would take them through, hey, here's where you're at today. What were your goals when we started? Here's what we've accomplished, and revisit like, where are you trying to go next, right? And then revisit why they hired you in the first place. Sometimes they're going to cancel, right? If they've already hired another company and they're completely out, still a professional thing to do to have that offboarding conversation. But a lot of times, just having that one-to-one, re-anchoring back to their goals and outcomes, and helping them see probably the things that you are doing that they didn't realize and the results that you have generated will get them re-engaged and back on board. I think about 30% of those I want to cancel messages can be retained with a really good save process.
Okay, that's a good number to shoot for, definitely. Shante asks, when should you fire a client when you realize they're probably not a good fit? I would tend to think as early as possible.
As quickly as you can, right? I like that answer, Jeremy. And proceed with caution, because you don't want to build a culture of, you're not a good fit, get out of here, right? You don't want that to be the underlying culture. But at the same time, if they're clearly not going to be a good fit, they don't respect what you're doing, they don't respect your team, they don't appreciate your time. The sooner you can have that conversation, say, hey, look, I appreciate the opportunity. This is the way we operate. These are our expectations. Maybe this isn't a good fit. And sometimes when you have that blunt conversation, you're willing to walk away from the relationship, that takeaway, they're like, no, wait a minute. Hey, I'll adjust. I didn't realize, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be disrespectful. I want to continue this relationship. But now the power dynamic has shifted from them like trying to be in charge and tell you everything to them being like, wait, I need you, right? And I want to do this. I want to follow your process. So have that conversation and accept the outcome either way.
I really love as well, as you say, don't go into the pitfall, this sort of like that culture where it's like, you're not that kind of client. I think, would you actually say it comes from the sort of like CEO setting up the right expectation or the right culture for the company to say like, be very clear on the vision. This is a client we serve, this is a client we don't serve. What would you say?
100%. Yeah, I think it's on the leadership, it's on the visionary, the company to set that, like, here's who we're going after. This is an ideal client. This is how we operate, and set the core values within the company, that our core values are to provide world-class service, right? To bend over backward for the client, but also to accept, not everybody's a fit, right? If they're not, it might be better to unwind those types of situations. Take the pressure off the team to feel like every client doesn't have to be happy. Every client isn't going to stick around forever.
Brilliant. Landy is asking, how do you handle cases where the issue appears to be the client is not closing the sales or the lead we send them? Like basically they're not acting on the lead you're sending them, right?
I think there's lots of ways you can take that. I think the first way would be to bring it to their attention, right? First of all, hey, look, we're looking at the results here. We're seeing leads coming in, but they're not converting, right? Bring that to their attention. Let them know. And then, it might be an opportunity for you to say, hey, look, we'd like to get involved and maybe help you with that. Like maybe we can put an appointment setter on the back end. One of our members, Chris Johnstone in Mortgage, that's what he does, right? He put a client concierge on the back end of the leads to solve that exact problem, which created a new revenue stream, better results for the clients, and better retention. The other option, which is what we do in our business because we haven't gone to that level, would be to align yourself with like a coach, align yourself with an industry expert that you can say, hey, we're seeing that you've got this issue here. You're not converting the leads. This company over here specializes in coaching businesses like yours, and they can help you solve that and make that connection. If you don't want to necessarily go that deep into their business and try and handle their sales process on their behalf.
Yep, really, really good. You know that slide where you had like that sort of wheel with all the different, aspects, right?
Yep.
Which one in your experience do you think is the hardest to implement for people?
See if I can get to it quickly enough.
Yeah, I was thinking
hardest to implement on the
one you've seen people have the hardest time to deal with, or like, it's the hardest for them to crack.
Geez, I thought it was going to be quicker. I apologize for the delay here, guys.
Right.
All right, we're there. We're there.
Maximum client retention. Which one do you think is the hardest?
I think the hardest piece here that people tend to miss, and it's actually pretty simple, is this meeting rhythm piece, right?
Oh, really? Okay.
Like, for whatever reason, they don't get consistent with the meeting with the client and doing the review process, and they're very quick to let themselves off the hook, right? They send the automatic email that says, hey, let's get on a call to review. And then the person doesn't show up. And they're like, hey, I don't need to worry about the meeting rhythm because I did that. Like, put a process in place where the clients are getting touched 3 and 4 times for that meeting, and put a process in place where you're tracking. Could be as simple as a Google Sheet where you've got every client that gets updated every month, where you've got a checkbox. Did we meet with this client, or did we send a Loom review? Simple thing gets missed pretty often in this process.
Yeah, love it. And while we're still on this thing, which one do you think is the sort of like minimum effort for the maximum result? Like, which one is having this kind of
the 80-20? The 80-20 on this,
that's the one.
Is simple. Welcoming with a bang and appreciation. Drop a gift basket, guys. This costs you $75, but you stand out from all of the other agencies that they've ever dealt with. And all of our members that have implemented this, they get thank yous, they get appreciation, and they get like reciprocity, right? It's a simple thing, but it has a huge impact.
Isn't I think our last speaker, Christian Iman, I think he was sending watches or something like that, right? Like $100 watch or something like that. I think that was a nice little trick. Was it him,
yeah.
Christian? Yeah.
Yeah,
it was. I liked it. Okay, a couple of more questions. We got Matt. How many employees do you have, and what's the best way you have found to find talent? So it's probably a completely different topic, but it's still nice if you got like a few lines on this.
So we've got about 30 full-time employees in our agency. The best way to find talent, in my opinion, is through referral, right? If you've got good employees that are doing good work, that like the culture, that fit into the business, that have personal friends or acquaintances or people they worked with in the past, those have always been our best employees, the ones that get on board. They've got friends in the business. They stick around long term. Second to that, I think Indeed works really well. That's kind of like the go-to job site where you can post on Indeed and get lots of great talent.
We're actually going to try to do a job board at some point during this year. So send us an email if you're interested. Alexander, do you let clients dictate how they prefer to be kept updated and informed, or do you feed them into your standard process? I think I kind of get what the answer will be, but
yeah, I think you're going to have a process, right? And so in our world, they might not want to meet once a month, but at least you need to have a couple of meetings, because yes, you can do so much with like a Loom video, but that personal two-way interaction where they get to know, like, trust you, and you get to hear the subcontext back from them, you can't really replace that. So I wouldn't say, oh, the client just wants emails and videos, well, that's what we're going to do. You say, no, look, if this is going to work, and this is an expectation you want to set on the front end, if this is going to work, it has to be a two-way conversation, right? We've got to get together at least once a quarter. We have to understand what your goals are. We have to understand where you're headed, and you need to understand kind of what we're doing, and we need your feedback to show us if we're on track, if the leads we're generating are the right kind of leads, and course correct based on that two-way conversation.
Got it. 2 more questions. Jennifer, what's the most improvement KPIs in your agency?
Jennifer, I'm going to assume that you meant what are the most important KPIs. I could be wrong. So Jeremy was asking, like, leadership wise, what do we do to run the agency? We're big fans of EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System. So our leadership team gets together on a weekly basis to kind of look at the most important KPIs. For me, retention is one of the most important. Like, what's our retention percentage? New clients, how many new clients did we get? How many new clients did we lose? That's why that sales retention tracking sheet is so mission critical. And then I think for us, we're looking at what's our average cost per lead generated across the spectrum of clients. That helps us get a pulse, like, are we generating profitable leads for our clients? Or is there some rogue thing happening either in Google Ads or in the SEO where our average cost per lead is starting to creep up and we need to make adjustments? So I think those would be our most important KPIs that we track on a pretty consistent basis.
Got it. Thank you. And last question that is a bit more light, I would say, from Paul. What does Josh do to balance family and work time? Does he have a set daily routine?
Yes, great question. And it is light. So we kind of like shifting off.
Right.
I've got 3 kids. For me, my business is built to serve my life, not my life to serve my business. So I wake up in the morning, I do a workout, I take my kids to school, I work from about 9 o'clock until 5:30, and then I'm done. I'll check my emails and stuff, but I don't proactively sit in my office and work after 5:30, and I don't work on the weekends. So my family time, my personal freedom is a priority in my life.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And I think that's what pretty much everyone is aspiring to. So thank you for saying that. Okay, so I think this is the end of the Q&A. So where do people need to go if they want to know more about you, what you can offer, and how you can help them to, go to the next level or implement some of those stuff and get some mentorship and so on?
Yeah, I think the best place is, if you're interested in learning more about me, 7-Figure Agency, would go to 7figureagency.com. A great entry point is I've got this book, the 7-Figure Agency Roadmap, which is kind of my roadmap on how I grew to 7 figures, land clients, deliver results, retention, and scale. Kind of hits that whole spectrum. You can grab a free copy of this by going to 7figureagency.com/free. And you just pay for the shipping, and I'll get this out to you completely free of charge. That's probably the best way.